In English, the expression once bit, twice shy has to do with the fact that once something has hurt us or bitten us, we tend to avoid it or shy away from it in the future. Now, in my experience, the expression doesn't always hold true for whiskey or relationships, but today's story has to do with the time when it did hold true. This happened a while back when my dog Sut and I were living in downtown Charleston. In those days, our walks would take us by an old brick fire station that stood on the corner of a relatively busy street and a relatively quiet street. Now, normally I would walk Sut off leash so he could explore the nooks and crannies of the neighborhood. I'd take the leash, I just wouldn't put him on it. I'd worked pretty diligently with him as a puppy, and he was exceptionally obedient, exceptionally loyal, and normally he would just go 10 yards ahead, snoop around, do his thing, and then wait for me to catch up. He was real good about not going in the street. And for years, we never had any problem. Until one day, as we were approaching the fire station, a fireman sort of appeared out of the truck bay to say hi. And Sut didn't see him coming. Sut had his nose to the ground, he was snooping, and when he looked up, all of a sudden there was this big fireman just kind of there, and it spooked him. It spooked him so much that he swerved left, away from the fireman, and into the street. And at just that moment, a car happened to be coming up the street. And thankfully, it was not going very fast. This was the quieter street, and the light at the corner was red. So when it did hit Sut, but when it hit him, the bumper just kind of bumped his haunch, and it rolled him. And he got up, he seemed to be fine. He was just stunned, freaked out. Looked at me, looked at the fireman, like, what the hell? And of course, the fireman started to come over and say, it's okay. But Sut, no, it is not okay. And with his eyes still on us, Sut started trotting away from the scene, which took him toward the busier street where the light was green and the traffic was pretty heavy. So out of the frying pan and headed directly for the fire. Now, instinctively, I said, "Huh!" And he stopped in his tracks, he sat down, and he waited. And this is why when you get a dog, you need to be very careful to take time to properly train the dog. Not just for your sake or your neighbor's sake, but for the dog's sake. Being well-trained, being obedient, probably saved Sut's life, not just on that occasion, but on a couple of other occasions as well. When I made that sound, he knew things were serious. He knew it was time to stop, sit down, and wait. So he did. He stopped, he sat down, he waited. I put him on the leash. I took him over towards the firemen so they could make their peace, but he wasn't having any of that. So we went on home. The next day, we went on our walk, as always, off leash. Clearly, I had not learned anything from the incident the day before. Now, Sut, on the other hand, had learned something. When we got close to the fire station, he slowed down and he eyed it suspiciously. And he veered away from it into the street. To him, it was the fireman that had bitten him. So it was the fireman, or the possibility of the fireman, that he needed to shy away from. So it was kind of like he had learned a lesson, but he had kind of learned the wrong lesson. Be like if after a long night of drinking gin and tonics, I woke up feeling like death warmed over, and I blamed the tonics. Well, fortunately, this time, there were no cars coming. I got Sut to sit. I put the leash on him. We went home. And from then on, I was very careful to always put him on the leash whenever we got close to the fire station. There came a day when the same fireman was out there, and finally they made their peace. After a couple of good ear scratches and good boys, Sut understood that around there he didn't need to be shy, that this fireman wouldn't bite.